Alright, while we patiently or maybe impatiently wait for the Lakers to make their next move here, according to reports and according to multiple reporters, they have been active in the trade market for a defensive-minded wing player. According to both Brett Siegel of Clutch Points and from Dave McMenamin of ESPN, they have been linked to multiple defensive-minded wing players, and even according to Brett Siegel, he does expect them to make a trade by the end of this month. So with that in mind here, who are they targeting, what kind of player are they trying to trade for, and would it actually be worth it, or maybe should they look in a different direction? We'll talk about that and try to break it all down here. But beginning with the trade report from Dave McMenamin, he said that Lakers have had trade talks with Miami about Andrew Wiggins, confirming previous reports from all kinds of different reporters, but that they only would trade for him for the quote-unquote right price. And to follow up on that, he then said that the next domino for their team to fall is the Shake Milton guarantee date. Which, if you don't know what he's talking about or kind of referring to here, he is talking about the non-guaranteed contract of Shake Milton, which is fully guaranteed on July 20th, 10 days from now as of this point. So up until now, until that point, that's what we might be waiting for. That could either free up another spot on their roster, allowing them to sign a free agent, or maybe through a trade take back 2 players instead of just 1. I personally think they will waive Shake Milton. Nothing against Shake Milton, I think he's a decent backup, but for what they need here, he doesn't really provide it. That defensive-minded 3&D backcourt player isn't terrible on defense, but also isn't a great defender. Same with offense, is decent, is a decent playmaker, decent 3-point shooter, but simply not enough to give them what they want and kind of what they need there. So yes, I do think they will waive Shake Milton, simply a matter of when, not if you ask me. And after they do that, I think that will be their next domino to then a trade thereafter. Whether again they take 1 player back, 2 players back in return, opening up that roster spot would help them with that. And then for the report from Brett Siegel of Clutch Points, him saying that the Lakers are in fact active on the trade market, looking for a defensive-minded wing player that would fill their need as a point of attack and or wing defender. Even mentioning that the Portland Trail Blazers might be a team that they could make a trade with, citing the relationship between Lakers general manager Rob Pelinka and Portland Trail Blazers, I think, general manager Joe Cronin, saying that it's worth keeping an eye on here and mainly from their past relationship. Though if we look into the Lakers and Trailblazers history, it's a rather short list, only 2 trades between them in NBA history at that, the last one being in 1980, literally 45 years ago at this point, so I don't know, maybe I guess if they truly have a good relationship, then maybe it can happen. I mean, Rob Pelinka does have a pretty good history of relationships leading to trades up until this point. The last one obviously being for Luka Doncic, maybe you've heard of him. That coming between him and Nico Harrison, the general manager of the Dallas Mavericks, so I guess we can point to that and maybe could happen here again with the Portland Trail Blazers. But with that in mind here, and if it would happen, who would be their trade target on their team? Well, going off this report and citing that they're looking for a wing defender, or simply a good defensive-minded wing in general, then the list is kind of short here, but I would point to 1 player in particular, that being Matisse Thybulle. We've actually heard from another report, this being from Anthony Irwin of Clutch Points, so I guess take it with a grain of salt, but he did list Matisse Thybulle as a trade target for their team. I think we've actually heard about this one in the past as well, so I think there might be something to point to here. Is some trade report and some trade history between them, linking them at least, so I would have some interest in Matisse Thybulle. Is coming off an injury-riddled season, only played 15 games last season, due to a combination of both knee issues and an ankle issue, limiting him to only 15 games, and that was by far a career low for him. Up until that point, had been a very healthy and durable player, never playing below 65 games, and that's a pretty good mark, especially including the COVID-shortened years in 2019-20 and 2020-21. And for what he offers on the court, I definitely would point to his defense. Being an absolutely terrific perimeter defender, being a very good wing defender, truly can guard and switch 1 through 3 and sometimes 1 through 4, very defensive-minded player, and that's pretty much why he's in the NBA and why he continues to be in the NBA. You know, slowly but surely is developing on offense, but always going to point back to his defense here. Whether you're talking about defensive playmaking ability, getting in passing lanes and taking the ball away, averages over 1.5 steals per game on his career in only 21 minutes per game, translating to well over 2 per 36 minutes, or if you're talking about simply one-on-one defense and being a disciplined defender, also very good in that regard too. truly can take on the toughest matchup on the court, whether it's at point guard, whether it's at shooting guard or small forward, Thibault can take on that matchup if he's actually healthy and on the court. And yes, I am a little bit concerned with the injury with him. I mean, only playing 15 games last season, that's definitely not a confidence builder. But between the long-term health with him, had been very durable up until this point, only being 28 yet, and overall I'm not too worried about it long-term. I think he'll bounce back, and it actually could help them get him through a trade and lower his trade value. Combined with the fact that he's under an expiring contract, only under a 1-year $11.5 million contract, that could help him actually be traded for a lower trade value and a lower trade asking price. Probably looking something like simply Gabe Vincent and a second round draft pick, even if that. I think that would probably be enough to get it done, or probably pretty close to it. I mean, they really can't ask much for him at this point, with Portland kind of going in a rebuilding direction. I mean, maybe you can argue they're trying to compete a little bit, but I think they take a second round draft pick for him. Not really a vital part of the rotation, after trading for Denny Advia, having young players coming up like Chris Murray and Toumani Camara, still having the withering contract and bad contract of Jeremy Grant. They don't really have a spot for him, so I think they definitely would trade him for the right price, which in my opinion is not a very high price. And even apart from the defense that Thibault could offer, does have some improving offensive ability that I kind of referenced before. Definitely is not a great offensive player, is not a great 3-point shooter, but has been showing consistent improvement. Over the past 3 NBA seasons now, actually has been a league average 3-point shooter and actually a little bit above it. From the 2022-23 NBA season up until last season, has shot roughly 36.3% from the 3-point line while taking about 3 of them per game. Even better as a corner shooter, in that time frame shooting roughly 38% from the corner, right around league average and slightly above it even. So I am optimistic about him, and especially if you would pair him with playmakers like Luka Doncic, LeBron James, and Austin Reeves. I think that would help him out a little bit. I mean, especially compared to Portland, the playmaking or lack thereof they had back there with him. We've talked about this with DeAndre Ayton, him having an F grade for teammate playmaking talent around him, which I think would also carry over to Matisse Thybulle. So if you put him instead on the Lakers team with LeBron and Luka, I think they do a better job at getting him wide open, getting him open in the corner for simply catch and shoot threes that he would have all day to take. I think that would help him out. Now, I'm not saying he would become a 40% 3-point shooter on 5 attempts per game. I think that would probably be a bit unrealistic, but simply shooting at or above 35%, I think that would be fairly realistic and pretty good realistic expectations if they would trade for him, combined with the great defense. And overall here, yes, I definitely would have interest in a trade for Matisse Thybulle. No, he's not the best trade target on the open market, not the best 3&D target, but he definitely is a very realistic one, and one that would fit both their needs for a defensive-minded wing or a point of attack defender, and their timeline with Luka Doncic too, which they do continue to prioritize. But apart from Matisse Thybulle, is there anyone else on the Portland Trail Blazers team that might make sense? Like I said, the report did say that there is a good relationship between Rob Pelinka and Joe Cronin, so maybe a trade could happen between them. And if it's not for Matisse Thybulle, who else could it maybe be for? Well, I don't see another wing player here that they would want and would actually be available. I know we've heard about Jeremy Grant in the past, but I am not interested in that contract, especially with him in obvious decline now at this point and not being a very great defender and not showing very much commitment to defense to begin with, so not going to talk about him. I wouldn't trade for him in that terrible contract. You know, maybe have minor interest for a guy like Drew Holiday, but also with a pretty bad contract, and with him now being 35, also not very interested in him either. So apart from wing players, I would maybe have minor interest in Rob Williams. I mean, perfectly theoretically fits what they'd like at backup center, though they kind of filled their backup center spot already with Jackson Hayes, and then on top of that, the obvious injury history with Rob Williams, him playing roughly 33 games per season, so yeah, that's not very good. Giving up even a minor asset like the expiring contract of Kleba or Gabe Vincent and a second round draft pick to get him might even be a bit too much. So kind of moving past Portland here, going back to the report from Dave McMenamin, he did mention that they've been active on the trade market, but he also mentioned that they have been active in trade talks for Andrew Wiggins, saying that they contacted Miami or were talking with them about Andrew Wiggins at the NBA draft, but that they'd only make a trade for him for the right price, which we've obviously heard about and heard a lot of different things about that price. Some people saying that it might take Rui Hachimura to get him, along with Dalton Connect and a future first-round draft pick, their only tradable first-round draft pick left to get Andrew Wiggins. Which obviously I would not do. I don't think that many of you would do that, and rightfully so too. I like Andrew Wiggins. I think he'd be a great fit for them. If he's healthy and committed on the court, I think he actually would be a perfect fit for them. Being that big 3&D wing that can match up and defend 1 through 4 on the court, is a very good 3-point shooter, even a decent 3rd to 4th scoring option. That's pretty much exactly what they need. But then with what it would take to get him I guess being a little bit past their preferred timeline with Luka Doncic, being 30, so definitely not old per se, but is I guess entering the latter part of his prime rather than entering his prime in the best part of his career, so you could make that argument. And then for the cherry on top, I wouldn't say his contract is a great contract. Not gonna say it's a Jeremy Grant level contract, which is a terrible contract, but also not an ideal contract to trade for. Making $30 million this season and then a little bit more next season, you know, not quite worth that amount. Maybe he could be if he got back to his 2022 level, but at this current moment is a little bit overpaid. So no, I'm definitely not going to trade the current asking price or maybe the asking price for him of Hachimura, Dalton Connect, and a first-round draft pick. If that would lower down to simply expiring contracts with one of Hachimura or Dalton Connect, then I probably would have interest, but I'm not going to trade both Dalton Connect and Hachimura plus the first-round draft pick in a trade for Andrew Wiggins. So definitely something to keep an eye on here. I think there's obvious interest in Andrew Wiggins and they would like to have him. Rightfully so, he fits their needs and would be a pretty ideal fit for their team, but not the current asking price. And if that asking price never does in fact go down, then that's when I would circle back to a guy like Matisse Thybulle. Going after a more realistic trade target, a guy with a much lower trade value and I guess lower production too, but a guy that would be easier to acquire, also would fit their needs to a certain degree, maybe wouldn't feel them as great as a guy like Andrew Wiggins would, but would kind of give them a stopgap for that spot, whether that's in their starting lineup or off the bench. It could address the need for them and at a much lower trade value. But with all of that being said, what do you guys think? How do you feel about the trade reports from Brett Siegel of Clutch Points and Dave McMenamin of ESPN, talking about the Portland Trailblazers, Matisse Thybulle, the trade price or potential asking price for Andrew Wiggins, and what the Lakers should do or will do going forward? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. But I think that'll pretty much do it for this one, and if you enjoyed the video, then I would greatly appreciate it if you dropped a like, subscribe to the channel if you have not already, and hit that notification bell to never miss out when I upload a video. But as always, thank you for watching and have a great day or night.